Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
Hey guys.
Hi, I'm Griffin.
I'm David.
This is the Lost episode. This
Yeah. Blank Check, the Lost episode.
Griffin v. David, Dawn of Ben Deucer. So we've explained this in the past.
Yeah, we talked
a
about
full
this.
episode.
If you haven't listened, we recorded an episode. Yeah,
A lot of conspiracy theorists online who think that we're censoring this episode because we're embarrassed of it.
we are and are not.
We are embarrassed, but we are not censoring
it. Yeah, exactly.
I swear to you, this thing is unlistenable because of technical difficulties.
It's crazy. But our great producer Ben, who we're not going to do all his names because this is supposed to be brief, Griffin.
This is a bonus.
Has been piecing little bits of it together just for you to listen to. This is just fun, dumb shit. And
Scrap.
it's just
for the
silly.
archives. This is a fun.
For the
Just
archives.
have fun.
So this, I think, is us talking about Zack Snyder's career.
Yeah, this is going to be like our sort of our usual preamble, mansplaining explanation of the person we're talking about.
Yep.
So this is the Zack Snyder chunk you're about to hear.
Do you podcast? You will.
Ladies and gentlemen, an intro from David Sims
Thank you.
himself.
Yeah, you probably can't even hear it. I was doing my Batman voice.
I had prepped one, but then David's was better, so we just went with it.
Prepped one.
I was pre-prepping one.
All right.
I was pre-prepping one.
My name is David Sims.
My name's Griffin Newman.
Welcome to Blank Check with Griffin and David.
With Griffin and David, with David Griffin and David.
Do a Griffin. David versus Griffin.
Yeah.
Dawn of podcasting.
Dawn of Ben Deucing. This is...
Guys, woo. Hi.
Here's what we like to do on this podcast. Talk movies. Maybe you heard of them? Talkies. Motion pictures.
Wow.
Flicks.
This is bad.
Films. Cinema.
This is a film podcast. Usually we focus on, sort of creative extravaganzas, good or bad,
Yeah.
that are being made with a blank check.
But here's the thing. We like careers. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we
Yeah.
like zooming out, looking at the career.
It's the kind of podcast where we'll be like M. Night Shyamalan. Heard of him? Boom, 11 episodes.
Yeah.
And then we're done with him and never want to talk about him again.
But we'll just flip you a quick 11 like that.
And then we're like, oh, the Wachowskis. We should talk about them. But first, wait a second.
Let me give you a little sherbet to cleanse that palate.
Sure.
A little sherbet.
Because we're like those cooks. What's it called? Macrobiology,
Oh,
whatever.
gastropubtologists?
Yeah, exactly.
A couple of gastropubtologists
we
you're
give
talking
you a
to here.
little, piece of steak tartare.
Ooh, delicious. Steak M. Night. What's next? Here's some sherbet.
Yeah.
Don't people sometimes
we
use
should
sherbet as a
probably literally start this over.
Yeah, I don't think this is good.
You don't like this?
No, I like the Batman intro, but I don't know what's...
What is this garbage? Anyway.
This is the second episode we're recording today.
Let's
After
just-
like a 3-week break, we're losing our minds.
We're losing our minds. We're having fun, guys.
I'll make it
you
work.
can chop it up if you need
Yeah.
to, but here we are.
Look, this episode might be fixed in post by producer Ben, a.k.a.
Oh, no, don't do that just yet. Jesus Christ. We'll introduce producer Ben in a second.
Producer? How dare you, sir? I'm not a producer.
You're a producer.
Yeah, at the very least, he's a pro-doer.
Yeah,
What if, can I try something different for this episode?
sure.
At different intervals.
You'll say one of his names?
Yeah.
Okay, so producer Ben.
Hey, guys.
So here we are. I'm David, you're Griffin, and today we're going to talk about the superhero films of Zack Snyder, particularly Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Right. We're trying
Batman
to...
v. Superman. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Batman v.
Superman.
Superman, Dawn O. Justice.
Had to do another bit.
But we're boy, this movie's been picked apart and dunked over more than General Zod's corpse at this point. But,
This episode's not even coming out the week we're recording it, but this movie's been out for about a month now.
yeah. By the time this comes out, this will be about a month. So we want to,
and it has vanished from the public consciousness.
Yes.
100%. So we
Right.
thought, great time for us to discuss it.
and we don't want to just shit on it. We want to try to put it in a larger context. We want to figure out where Zack Snyder stands with superheroes.
No, I just want to shit on it.
There's a lot of shitting to do, and also this movie is going to launch a DC cinematic universe.
Yeah. So
And
usually
so-
we talk about directors, who are being kind of just like given free reign to make this sort of nonsense,
Yeah.
that's sometimes good, sometimes bad. It's a little different.
Look, in some
Because
ways,
as you say, it's a franchise starter.
They simultaneously gave him way too much freedom and reined him in a lot.
Well, I wouldn't say they reined him in at all. They just gave him a lot of freedom, but then also said, but you do have to do a bunch of stuff.
You're right. They didn't rein him in. They gave him like a long reading list.
They did not rein him in.
No, not at all.
Batman v Superman.
Okay, so
Dawn of Justice.
let's back up a little because we like contextualizing these things.
Oh, boy.
Zack Snyder's like a commercials guy.
Zack Snyder.
Zack Snyder.
Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
Is a commercials guy? I didn't know that.
I think he was like a commercials director. I think that was a big thing. He was like a big hotshot like commercials director.
His name's
right?
The Peeper.
Oh, yeah, that's his name. Some call him The Peeper.
Yeah, we're talking about Ben.
Got my eyes on you two.
He then makes a film called Dawn of the Dead.
Sure, written by James Gunn, a remake of the George Romero zombie flick.
A movie that I think is great.
Yeah, good movie.
It's the one Zack Snyder film I really
Pretty much everyone
like.
likes it. It's good.
I own it. I watch it a lot.
Stylish.
It's also
Well acted.
It's one of the few remakes of a great movie that I think is great
clicks.
on its own. Mm-hmm. You know, it keeps the right elements.
Thumbs
it reinvents it in enough ways.
And
Working
that's
from
all
a
we
great
need to
script,
say about that.
Great cast, right?
Sure.
It's a film that is stylish, but is not overly stylized.
Moving on.
Then he makes a film called 300.
It's a huge smash hit.
Boom, huge.
It's a god-awful movie.
Not a movie I like.
No.
But
bad.
it's massive.
One of the biggest cinematic disappointments I've ever had was 300.
Really?
I was really excited for it. I liked Dawn of the Dead, and it looked cool. There were all these trailers, and I think I was looking forward to like a really epic bloodbath of a movie. And the thing people don't say about 300 is it's weirdly not that violent.
No, not at all.
It's like it's not very bloody or gory or anything. It's kind of just it's lame, and it's also like super racist.
Yeah.
And it's just
Like homophobic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a gross movie, but it had this distinct visual style.
It's got some slow motion violence, though.
Some slow motion violence.
Yeah,
There's a
just
lot
a little
of slow,
bit. Just
yeah,
a tiny little bit.
But
and it also gave us like Gerard Butler. It hasn't done a lot
it
for
gifted us with Gerard Butler.
I mean, he was still around, but really, yeah.
But that was a big breakout for Michael Fassbender, apparently.
I mean, he's in it.
But he started like getting big parts after that, and I remember
guess
being
so.
like, "Who was he in that movie? I don't fucking remember."
He's one of the shirtless guys.
exactly. Like, how did he fucking pop
It
from
probably
that?
helped Lena Headey get Game of Thrones, if you're into that.
Yeah, and we were saying earlier, I think she's probably the best part of
We're
that
not
movie.
talking about 300. Jesus
Okay,
Christ.
but 300 makes a crazy
Huge
amount of
hit,
money.
And it was an adaptation of a comic book, a Frank Miller comic book.
It weirdly feels like Sin City set the stage for 300.
Because it was like a green screen movie.
Right. And it sort of like Sin City was maybe a little ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And 300 hit right at the right point of the bell curve. So everyone now thinks that he's a visionary genius.
Sure. So then he's handed the keys to the sort of by acclamation greatest like comic book ever written.
No, let's talk about the fact Watchmen comes out, I believe, 1984,
So in mid 80s.
maybe 6. It comes out in the mid 80s, right? It's revolutionary.
Yeah, it's a 12-issue series or something like that. That's
Yeah.
a huge hit. It's collected in a trade paperback. That's an even bigger.
It's a game
Alan
changer,
Moore's sort of masterwork. 1986 and 7.
Okay. Time Magazine, when they did their 100 greatest novels of all time
Put it on
recently,
there.
put it on there. That was the one graphic.
It's Watchmen. Terry Gilliam tried to make
Right,
it
that's
into
what I was
a
going to
movie.
say. Very,
Darren Aronofsky
very
tried to
quickly,
make it into a movie.
everyone was trying to make it into a movie. Joel Silver had the rights for a long time. He wanted to do it as an action film. Terry Gilliam wanted to do it as this and that. They talked about doing it as an
So
HBO
it was
miniseries.
too expensive.
All these things. And there was a
a
series of guys of like Greengrass came really close to doing it. Aronofsky came really close to doing it. And it kept on getting shut
Greengrass
down.
came really close.
Very close.
Like there was material. Like,
Yeah.
there was like pre-production material.
And his cast, if I believe I'm remembering correctly, was I heard it was Ron Perlman as the comedian, John Cusack as Night Owl,
Great.
Hilary Swank as Silk Spectre, Simon Pegg as Rorschach.
What?
That one was
terrible.
weird. Yeah.
Maybe he'd be okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who's Dr. Manhattan?
I'm trying to remember.
It doesn't matter. Anyway,
Yeah,
didn't
anyway,
happen.
whatever.
And then pretty quickly it got handed over to Zack Snyder, I think, with this idea that, like, here's a guy who's made a comic book movie that's rated R and is super, high production value, and he's done it well, and it's been a hit.
He was on Watchmen before 300 came out. Because I remember distinctly.
We don't have enough time to argue these
We're
semantics.
going to talk about that. No. Because I think we're
I'm just like they knew.
We're not going through all his movies, but this is what I want to say. Okay, Watchmen had always been this thing that studios were buying it. It was in turnaround. It went through like 4 different studios, right?
Yeah.
And everyone like wanted to make it because it was so well acclaimed. But then the studios would look at it and be like, how are we going to fucking make a movie out of this? It's R-rated, doesn't have action scenes, it's really expensive, it's for adults.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's not a franchise starter, it's a one-off, right? And so these big directors would come on, and I'd say to my friends, like, I think Aronofsky's going to make it this time. It's like, it's not going to get made. It never gets made. Watchmen never gets made. And Zack Snyder, like, the timing was just right. He was the guy in development on it at the time that 300 was coming out, and 300 was so big that he immediately went, that's what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm cashing in everything on this.
Yeah.
And he got it made exactly the way he wanted to.
Which was, in terms of plot and dialogue and look and setting, pretty faithful to Alan Moore's comic book.
But thuddingly literal.
Yeah, no, totally blew it.
And
But,
super superficial.
You know, like, Alan Moore comic book is set in the 80s, like, in a sort of weird, and he made
did
that
like
happen.
fucking like frame by frame
But,
recreation.
like, Greengrass's take supposedly was set in the present day or whatever. You know, like, there were other scripts that had changed things or whatever.
Yes.
Apart from the ending of the movie, which he tweaks, Snyder basically made the comic book.
And the framing of a lot of the images is like
he
identical.
just-
You know?
Which is something a trick he had pulled off in 300.
Right.
You know, and he did it again.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Watchmen. It's a bad movie.
Then he has a couple big flops.
And it
in a row.
doesn't make a huge amount of money, but it's not like a total bomb.
It was a huge disappointment because the trailer played before Dark Knight, which was really sort of this apex moment of like superhero cinema.
Yeah.
People went bananas for the trailer. All these people who never read the comic book just thought it looked cool. Right? Because it was a cool trailer,
Yeah,
quote
fine.
unquote.
It was fine.
I'm saying it was a quote unquote
cool. And it was from the visionary director of 300.
Right, and
yeah.
you were seeing a serious Batman movie.
That's
and
what
maybe
the
you thought,
tagline was.
Yeah. And they thought it was going to do like crazy numbers.
Yeah.
It did 50 million opening weekend, which at the time was viewed as sort of a disappointment
Yeah, it was like, oh, okay.
because it had a big Friday to Saturday drop off.
Yeah. And then it ended around 100.
Right, so it like doubled its opening weekend. The next weekend it did like a 70% drop, right?
Yeah, and then, you know, it cost like 130 to make. I don't think it was a huge hit overseas. You know, it did its thing. It wasn't
Probably
like a
did well enough on home
disaster.
video, but it was a disappointment, right? Then Sucker Punch, which they were so bullish on Watchmen.
And he'd been making like the whole, like he'd been making it before. He made it.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
He was like preemptively cashing a second blank check off of the success of Watchmen.
No,
that
Sucker
then
Punch
didn't happen.
is the most blank checky movie he ever
Right.
made because it's an original idea. It's bugfuck nuts.
Yeah.
It's not good either, but it's probably better than Watchmen.
I have not seen it.
Anyway.
But when he announced Sucker Punch, he had a cast that was like the 5 best young actresses. And after Watchmen came out, they all
rolled
dropped
my
out.
eyes at that.
Do you know the original
okay.
cast?
Because I was going to say like Jenna Malone.
No. The original cast of Sucker
she's
Punch,
fine, but-
I believe, was Emma Stone, Mia Wasikowska.
Oh shit!
I think
So,
Jenna
right.
Malone was the one. He
kind
truly
of the
had
A-list
Yeah.
of like sort of actresses
Jennifer Lawrence
around
hadn't
25.
popped yet, but he
yeah.
had the 5 actresses you would want to get in that age range, and then all of them dropped out after Watchmen. He still got a ton of money to make it. It was a huge financial disaster. Simultaneously with directing
But
Sucker
Oscar
Punch,
Isaac's in it.
yeah. Simultaneously, while directing Sucker Punch, he is directing an animated film, despite having no background
Legends
in
of the
animation.
Guardians: the Owls of Ga'Hoole. That's the name of the movie. You have to say it like that.
Is it about just owls?
Yeah.
It's about Australian owls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who
You
are
don't remember this movie?
Part
It's
of
very
different
pretty.
warrior clans.
It's very
No,
pretty. It
I
looks
don't
nice.
remember
Yeah.
It's nice looking owls.
They're fighting owls. It's like an owl. It's like Redwall with owls. It's based off a series of young fantasy novels.
Correct.
That is weird.
Yeah, and it's
Correct.
called Legend of the Guardians.
The Owls of Ga'Hoole. That one was actually a moderate success.
I mean, but that cost a lot of money, that movie. They also wanted to make like 7 of them. Like that's a franchise.
It's so weird.
You know? That's why they started with the Legends of the Guardian, because it was going to be like...
Legends, yeah, it was going to be called like Guardians of Ga'Hoole, and then they decided, no, let's get a colon in there.
Right, so we can franchise it. So we can
Anyway,
make the different titles. Yeah.
So he's kind of on the outs. Like,
Yeah.
he's kind of on what you would think of as a downward swing, and maybe you'd think, like, oh, like Hollywood maybe has caught on to the fact that this guy's thing doesn't always work money-wise. He's not going to get.
And Warner Brothers has now lost a good amount of money on him.
Very true. All of his movies, except for Dawn of the Dead, were made for Warner Brothers.
Yes.
But you know what? Warner Brothers is still probably like 300, though.
Yeah.
You know, and that is the blank
Classic
check.
blank check situation.
So, Christopher Nolan's done with his Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah.
And Warner Brothers is like, hey, do you want to make like Superman movies for us? Like produce them, like whatever. We just need your name. We just love you, Chris Nolan. Like, please don't leave us. Oh my God, what are we going to do without you?
He sits down with David Goyer, and they
the great Satan of superhero films.
They
David
talk
S. Goyer.
for like an hour and a half. And they walk out there and they go, we think we have an interesting, like, basic nugget of a Superman movie.
Yeah, their basic nugget was, what if Superman, what if we did like a Superman movie where he's Superman? That's the idea. Like, what the fuck? What was their nugget?
I think their nugget was, what if you really play up the alien thing and it's about him trying to figure out whether or not the world needs Superman?
Yeah, what a stupid idea.
They go to Warner Brothers. Christopher Nolan pretty much is hands off from that point.
Yeah, Nolan he gets a story credit. He's a producer.
Yeah.
And he picks Zack Snyder.
Okay, so a little backstory here.
Because, boy, have we not had enough of that.
There was a...
Do you remember the beginning of this podcast, how bad it was? No one's listening. Go ahead.
No, I cut all of that out.
Oh, good.
This is the start. Hey, everybody. So there was a long-standing lawsuit. Lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. This case of legal
about
history.
Jerry Siegel and
Right.
about the creators of Superman.
The estates
what
of the
they're
creators of
entitled to.
Superman.
Yeah.
And at the point in time when Nolan came to them and said, I think I have an idea for how to reinvent Superman, they looked to be losing that battle.
Right.
Schuster and Siegel had come up with a really good case. And Warner Brothers' strategy was...
Ben just laughed.
Every time we do these one-offs, he gets so mad at you. It's so hilarious.
It's just like, what the
This
fuck,
frustration throughout the recording just builds and
we're
builds.
Not, all right, just go ahead. Someone was recently telling me
I just
like,
wanted
they
to
had
make
just
sure,
listened.
the audience knows that while Griffin is giving like some interesting points,
David's
David is just
fuming.
going like, he's just
I'm
like
just doing the
wrap
it up sign. Okay, Jerry Schuster, but they lose. But it looks like they're going to win.
They at that moment, they lost later. They at that moment said, we have to rush a Superman movie into production in the next year.
Because it was like Warner Brothers was going to lose the rights to Superman. Was that it? Like, what was the... Or it was going to cost them too much or something?
The case... Okay, this is what's kind of fascinating.
Oh, boy. Why did I ask? What am I doing?
Okay, so this is the next piece. This was the thing we really want to save from this episode.
Yeah, it's about the theater that punches you and like stuff like that. You saw it in 4DX.
4DX.
Yeah.
Producer Ben and I went to see the movie in 4DX, and this is our we regale you with our tales of the 4DX experience.
Right. So listen and enjoy.
And smell.
Of all the things, can we talk about Aquaman? We haven't even talked about what this fucking movie is.
We're under the assumption that everyone has seen this or has an
If you
understanding of what
haven't,
happens.
don't see it.
What?
Yeah, it sucks.
I'm sorry. There's the bigger thing we were setting up.
Yeah,
You saw it on
4DX.
AMC Prime.
I
Everyone
saw
was
it on
laughing.
AMC Prime. It was
Yeah,
very
we got it.
loud.
The Haas and I saw it.
I believe it's at the Union Square.
Correct.
Regal. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They've renovated the whole thing, so it's like less seats now, but each seat's like a little console. And it's like Honey, I Shrunk the Audience.
How much does it cost?
$28.
Oh my God!
Worth every penny. When you
Agreed. And this is coming from a guy who didn't have to pay for his ticket because I bought it. But it is worth every penny.
on the armrest, it says you got an option. It
You
says
have one
water
control.
on or off.
Wait, water?
On or off. Me and Griff, we like to get it a little wet.
We got a little wet.
Got a little soaked.
So we sit there in these chairs, right? The moment the film starts, it opens with... Because here's the thing I don't know if people know, okay? Batman's parents were killed.
God.
So the movie opens with Batman's parents being killed.
Yeah.
But it's
played
done
by Jeffrey Dean Morgan of Watchmen and Walking Dead. They are killed in fetishistic throwback fashion. He's got a big porno mustache. They just saw like Excalibur, but it's almost like they just saw like Exorcist 3 or something. Like,
right.
You know? Because now Batman is like, it's 2016, so when he was a kid, it was like exiting like Times Square porno theater for the whole fucking thing. Like, you can't have gone to the opera anymore, you know?
Right. It's also shot like a Dior commercial.
It's such
like
shit.
There's like a slow motion shot of
her pearls like popping.
Get caught on the barrel of the handgun and then like pop off. This is done as like a montagey thing, right? So they're intercutting between that moment in slow motion and like him at the funeral and like looking at the grave, and then he's running and he falls into a hole and the bats surround
the bats
him, right?
lift him up.
Okay, so from the moment this starts,
A little rumbling.
Okay, so it's just like a rumble.
well, from the opening,
Uh-huh.
it was like a disorientation thing. Like it was like swaying from side to side. So you feel emotionally how Bruce feels when his parents are dead. He doesn't know which way is up anymore. I swear to you.
Or even like they had like a aerial shot. you like kind of tip into it a little bit.
Yeah.
So you feel like you're looking down.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So it's kind of like you're on like Star Tours or whatever, but it's like it's supposed to be geared towards this particular movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then some fog comes in because it's a foggy day.
So now, where does the fog come from?
Okay, so that's in front of the screen.
Okay.
Because there's like...
You know what I love? Fog.
Yeah.
Disrupt my viewing experience.
But they also, like, the smog has some versatility because it also functions as smoke.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
right.
so when there's, like, fire...
If there's a fire.
There's, like, smoke actually in front of the screen and then 3D images behind that. So it's like a weird layering thing.
Now here's another thing.
Okay.
Let's say Batman does a little burnout.
In the Batmobile?
Yeah.
The Batmobile smells like burnt rubber.
Yep.
Okay, so they have smell-o-vision experience.
Finally.
And that's like the chair in front of you is spritzing stuff.
Okay.
But you don't hear anything. So you're like, you think sometimes, especially in a movie like this, like there were a couple moments where you're disappointed with where like Batman's making eggs and you don't smell it.
It was Superman makes eggs, not Batman.
Sometimes they eat stuff, and I'm thinking, if you're gonna hit all the senses, why not just have a little
Burger pop out in your face.
exactly? And
Yeah.
it puts it in your mouth. Or if like someone gets kissed in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, why doesn't the chair make out with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but here's the thing that happens. Sometimes the chair punches you in the back.
I don't like that.
No, it hurt a lot.
That sounds like a design flaw.
There are like motors in the back that like pop out and hit you so you feel like that. And it's like rumbling and it's swirling. And then the smells are like, okay, so there's like one fight that happens near a gas station.
Okay.
Just for a second go like,
Is there like
is there a gas leak in this theater? Because all the scents in the film are like, they're not like,
No,
oh, here's
yeah,
a strawberry field.
It's not a good smelling movie.
And there's so many moments too where it's just like they haven't used the technology recently enough, so let's just throw something in.
Yeah, right.
Superman's mother is taking the garbage out before she gets kidnapped, and the whole theater just smelled like garbage.
Are you serious?
yeah, I swear to you.
That's insane.
There was like a very distinct garbage bag smell.
That's crazy.
But the only thing that you could control,
It was water.
and they rain on you from the top of the theater, from the ceiling. They drop rain on your head.
Like a lot?
Yeah.
You get pretty moist.
Ben and I both put our hats back on. It was great. I had a
So
blast.
you would recommend 4DX experience, $28.
$28.
I'm convinced that's the future though of movies.
Smell.
It was fun.
Rain.
No, smells, rain,
The whole
moving
thing.
your chair, punching you, kissing your
What
chair.
if you're just seeing like a... What if you just see like a sad indie movie about like, two people who can't get along?
I think Hello, My Name is Doris is playing in 4DX.
Yeah, it's in
now.
4DX right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so during
smell a lot of
anytime
paper.
anytime it's awkward, you get punched in the back.
It was an interesting movie to experience that technology for the first time. Like, on one hand, it wasn't taking anything away from the movie.
Right.
On the other hand, it's sort of a terrible movie to watch with that technology because the movie's 2 hours and 45 minutes
Sure,
long.
you get like battered.
I remember actually something that surprised me is you couldn't smell Eisenberg's emoting.
No. So those are the main two chunks that we were able to salvage from the audio file. Ben has
Just a bunch of other crap.
here's some other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look, everything we say is a beautiful gem of wisdom that should be listened to, and so I guess Ben's just gathered it together like a little gatherer.
Yeah, usually you're like a prospector and you're in the water sifting through for
away.
gold,
Sifting,
and you got to
sifting.
sift through all the bullshit to get to the gold. Ben has just given you some gold nuggets now. So here's just some pure distilled gold nuggets, and I hope you enjoy. This will be the last segment of this Lost bonus episode.
Suicide Squad, which is out in July
Right.
or June.
Yeah.
August, sorry.
Yeah.
I got it.
Boy.
Wonder Woman, which is out next June,
Yeah.
2017. Justice League 1, which is out in November. Aquaman in July 2018. Untitled Film in October 2018,
Okay.
which might be a Batman movie.
Yeah. Which Affleck would write and direct is the theory at this point.
Shazam in 2019, I believe with The Rock.
I don't know. You know who I think would be good? Chris Pratt. Because he's like a little boy in a grown-up body.
Fuck off. Justice League Part 2 in June 2019.
Yeah.
Untitled Film. So they have 2 untitled films on the slate.
A cyborg movie coming in 2020.
Who the fuck is Cyborg?
He's a guy. He's a cyborg.
These characters are all shitty. Batman's great, but all the other characters suck.
I like Superman.
I like Flash.
I like the Flash too. I like the DC characters fine. I like Wonder Woman.
I like
I've never
Flash
been
and Batman. I'm not crazy about the others.
No, they're all so literal.
Okay. Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg, is like a tech CEO type who inexplicably wants to use kryptonite to destroy Superman, but he wants Batman to do it, so he manipulates the both of them.
He hates
into
superheroes.
having like a
also,
fight.
his father used to beat him.
Yeah, sure, whatever. They like try to sprinkle in some sort of nonsensical, but like there's no attempt to really make any sense of his motivations.
Holly Hunter is a Democratic senator who has more sway than any senator of the last 25 years.
Holly Hunter is a senator who I guess like is the chair of the Superman committee, so she has to like interact with Lex Luthor about the kryptonite. She's around.
He wants to import kryptonite and he needs her permission.
So there's that. Scoot McNairy.
Yes.
The great Scoot McNairy.
One of our finest
Love Scoot.
character actors.
Love Scoot, love Scoot, love Scoot. He's
Same.
great. He plays a former Wayne employee who loses his legs in the Superman incident, and so he's mad about that.
Yeah.
And so Bruce has got some guilt about that.
And he keeps on changing who he's mad at about it.
Whatever.
At first, he's
I
very
am your
grateful
ghost.
that Bruce Wayne
but like
saves
also,
him.
Lex kind of implies that maybe he wrote all of those like mash notes to him. So like, who knows?
Who knows?
You got Lois Lane. Oh Jesus! There's that thing where she's in Africa for some reason
With Jimmy Olsen.
with Jimmy Olsen, who is a CIA agent and is executed off screen
After 2 lines of dialogue.
played by Michael Cassidy. This movie is so bad.
Can I just restate something quickly? Academy Award winner Ben Affleck.
Oh
Academy Award winner Holly Hunter. 5-time Academy Award nominee Amy Adams.
And you've got
Academy
Eisenberg.
Award nominee Jesse Eisenberg. Academy Award nominee Lawrence Fishburne.
Academy Award winner Jeremy Irons.
Academy Award nominee Michael Shannon as a corpse.
Nobel Peace Prize winner Scoot McNairy.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Nancy Grace. Charlie Rose.
Aquaman.
Doomsday.
So there's all this stuff it's working with. It's got like this idea that Batman's old and haunted by like these past crimes the Joker brought on him or something.
Right.
But they never say that.
Robin's been killed.
They just have a brief shot of a suit that only nerds will realize, oh, that might be supposed to be Robin's suit. Doesn't look like it.
It's like a sepia-toned version of Robin's suit.
With
and
Joker graffiti all over it.
that says, ha ha ha, who's
Why
laughing
would Batman
now?
keep this
He'd
suit?
throw that out immediately.
Oh my God. That's the creepiest thing in the world. And
He would fucking Jake Gyllenhaal demolition that shit so
I don't
quickly.
even want to talk about demolition.
I only brought it up because I wanted to see how angry you'd get if I brought it up.
No, the Wayne Manor has been burned down. Like, it's just like a burned husk.
Yeah.
And again, we assume, like, oh, something bad happened there. We don't know
So
what.
he lives in Tim Allen's house from Galaxy Quest. It's like a glass house. I swear to you, I think it might be.
You nailed it.
I think it might be the exact same location. I honestly think.
Sure,
It's
sure.
a very specific all glass house of a certain rectangular shape on the Hollywood
okay,
Hills surrounded by a pool.
All right, my God. Yeah, no, I mean, yes, that's where he lives.
Yeah.
And Alfred is kind of just like a cranky guy
I've been
who...
holding on to that reference for
That was
3
great.
weeks.
It was great. Alfred is a cranky guy whose only interest in this movie is Bruce Wayne settling down with a nice lady and having a baby.
I do
he
think-
has no interest in him being Batman.
I do think it's the only fully successful performance of the film.
Irons is great.
He's great.
Jeremy Irons is never bad. He's great. I love him.
Yeah.
I think Affleck's pretty good.
Affleck's solid.
He's handed like a poop sandwich.
He's solid.
and
It's a
he's-
decent movie star performance. It's not
Yeah,
a great
I
piece of
think
acting,
he's
but it's a
okay.
decent movie star
I
performance.
think that Henry Cavill, who I thought was okay in Man of Steel, but was not
was
like that.
fine.
He was okay.
He was fine.
His performance in this movie is ruinously bad and is
Yes.
not being talked about enough. Not only is his Superman a total vacuum of charisma,
Correct.
his Clark Kent is the craziest take on that character I've ever seen. So, I mean, if you remember, like, the Reeve Clark Kent is the reason the movie works, in my
Yes,
opinion. I mean,
agreed.
everything else is great, too, but his Clark Kent is, like, really distinguished from the Superman.
Right.
Is really nerdy and, like, goofy in the right ways and, like, kind of a, he's great, right?
Yes. Brandon Routh's performance was a decent cover band.
It was okay. Yeah, it was okay.
He did a good cover band
He's
approximation.
sweet.
He's sweet.
He sort of leans on his sweetness.
He's got the good qualities.
He's not quite as goofy or whatever, but it's fine.
He's a little hamstrung by having to match Reeves so closely.
In this movie, Henry Cavill's whole performance is basically he puts on a big glasses.
Yeah.
And he then And he's just like, I did it, right? I'm Clark Kent now? That's what I do, right? And he spends the whole movie whining at Perry that he should be allowed to write about Batman, which in the context of this movie is a 20-year-old story. Literally, like, he's like, we have to talk about Batman. And Perry never says this. What he should say is like, dude, like, Batman's old. We know. We wrote lots of stories about Batman.
That's like the main like arts and culture writer of the New York Times only wanting to cover Steve Gutenberg.
But he has
Like,
no...
yes, ostensibly he's still around, but that's not the guy we're talking about
He
right
has
now.
no version of Clark Kent. There's nothing.
No, there's no
It's
character.
just he's just standing there.
There's no characterization.
There's nothing, and
Also, that's clearly Superman.
it's very obvious. Like,
Yeah.
and like it has. Everyone always makes that joke, like, "Oh, how does nobody tell?" But you can do it right, and
Through
they do it
performance?
the opposite of right.
I think Reeve kills that, where you're like, okay,
So
yes, they
good.
do look
So
identical,
good.
but these two guys behave so differently that you.
It's so good.
Yeah. The thing where everyone goes like, Clark Kent couldn't be Superman. He's an idiot.
Yes.
He's a bumbling fool.
Exactly.
You know, like that whole vibe is what you need. Amy Adams now lives with Clark Kent.
Yeah, and she knows he's Superman. That happened in Man of Steel.
Right. They fuck in a bathtub.
That scene made me want to rip my skin off. I swear to God, it was like the least sexy, like that scene's supposed to be like intimate and cute.
Yeah.
She's in the bathtub.
Right.
And Snyder's playing this whole trick where he's like, you're not going to see Amy Adams naked, but the water's going to move around.
There's some- yeah.
He gets in the bathtub with his clothes on. and
Fully
I'm just
dressed.
like, what is the fucking matter with you?
Fully dressed.
The water goes everywhere.
Yeah.
I hated the whole thing.
I hated
would
the
have
whole
dumped
thing.
him on the spot. I get out
That's
of this
like
tub.
minute 18 of the
The
film.
worst. And it's after he like rescues her from this horrible situation in a made up African country.
Yes. Can I throw out another thing
For
here?
which Superman is held responsible, even though everyone in that situation is killed with bullets. So we're supposed to believe that people believe that Superman like got a gun and
got a
like
Glock.
flew over
Yeah.
to Africa to shoot people for no reason. I said I didn't want to just rag on this movie, but now that's all we're doing.
Faint Praise Award, and this
Sure.
award is grandfathered in from Man of Steel.
Da-da-da.
I like that Lois Lane's significantly older than Superman.
Interesting.
She's like 10 years older.
I mean, I think you're right.
As actor to
I
actor,
didn't
there's
really
10
think
years
about it
between the
too
two
hard.
of them.
Okay.
That's a very rare occurrence in films, right?
Sure.
And especially because they don't comment on it all.
Cavill is 32 and Adams
I believe
is
it's
41. Yeah.
It's 9 years difference between the two of them. That's substantial, right?
Absolutely.
I like it a lot. I think Amy Adams is a great actress. She's given
I
nothing
think Amy
to do
Adams
in this
is a
film.
good actor, but I don't think she's particularly good in this movie.
I agree,
Although
but I don't think-
she nails the line, "It's his mother's name."
Yeah.
I actually think she did a great job, even though that scene obviously is a tough sell.
I actually thought I was very frustrated with how her character was written. We'll get onto that.
Oh boy, there's so many things.
Wait, we still have to talk about Watchmen too? What are we
We're
doing?
not going
We're
to
not
talk
gonna
about
talk
Watchmen.
about
Alright, good.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Oh
Can
my
we start
God.
calling ourselves the two Marthas instead of the two friends?
Hashtag the two friends.
Hashtag the two
Ben, you're
Marthas.
called Kylo Ben. I couldn't think of one.
So
We forgot about that bit.
General Ben. Ben Rolzad. Watch Ben.
I like that. Because I'm the peeper, but now it's turned back on me.
Oh my God. We have 30 minutes. We have 30 minutes. I'm looking at the clock. That's
We've
what
been recording for 30 minutes?
Oh no! Are you crazy?
No.
We've got 30 minutes left.
Okay.
Before we got kind of the hard out, I think.
Oh, gotcha.
Anyway.
Okay,
Oh,
but
boy.
this is the thing I want to say, okay? I think that character's horribly written in this film.
Lois,
Yeah.
you're talking about? Yeah.
I think she just kind of has to show up and do her job. She's not great. She has a couple good moments.
Yeah.
I think she was
mean,
actually pretty good in Man of Steel. Once again, with
she's
a
okay.
not well-written character.
She has the same problem, which is that unfortunately, which is kind of a Lois Lane problem. She kind of just has to be a little stupid to get into a bad situation, and then the movie kind of has to deal with that, and it's just a little annoying.
I mean, I could talk for 5 hours about my interpretation of the character from the trailer and why I thought they were going to get it right, but I'm not going to. This is what I'll say.
Very glad to hear that.
This is what I'll say.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The thing that really bites them in the ass about the Amy Adams casting is this movie so centered around the mothers, right? They latch onto this idea where you go, oh, I wonder why someone didn't think of this sooner, because no one gives a shit, right? Both Batman and Superman.
To say they latch onto this idea is a little strong. It's more like they came upon that idea and they pushed a whole bunch of chips onto it really quickly.
But don't you think, okay, these two characters have existed for 70 plus years, right?
Longer, yeah.
I think Batman just hit 75. Superman's like 80 now, right?
Totally.
They both have always had mothers named Martha, and no one ever made anything of it because who cares?
No, I mean, one, Batman's mother is not a character.
Right, she's dead.
She's dead.
She's a lady.
She is called Martha Kent. Superman's mother is called Martha, but a lot of the times they just call her like Ma or whatever, like Ma Kent.
Yeah.
Especially in like the older comics. So, it's not really a thing. But I guess somebody, be it Goyer, be it Snyder, I don't know who, hit on this as like, oh, that's what these two have in common.
I know why they
that's
fight, and that's why they stopped fighting, because they both have moms with the same name.
Now, I'm going to say something, because this movie, I think the Martha thing is maybe the most mocked thing in this movie by the general public.
But I just want to point out this thing quickly that I was building up to. Diane Lane is 52 years old.
No, this has been pointed out on Twitter, which is the same age as Robert Downey Jr., by the way.
Oh, sure. But not just that.
Sure.
There are scenes where Lois, Martha, and Superman are all in the same shot. And Amy Adams, because Henry Cavill is playing him so much as a petulant little child, like a brat, her only way to play against him is to be maternal.
She's very maternal.
Because she's so much more intelligent and sophisticated than he is.
Sure.
That when the mom shows up and you're like, there's 10 years between.
But, I mean, Diane Lane is playing older.
But that's what's so gross, is that, like, Diane Lane's character should be 70.
Yeah.
Because in Man of Steel, when they show the flashbacks to him as a child, she's playing, like, late 40s who adopted a kid.
Yeah.
And then they age her up and have her do, like, Winona Ryder, old lady, like, Edward Scissorhands, like, oh, Superman, sort of
so
stuff.
weird.
So there are moments where all three of them are on screen, and it's like, this is fucking, it's weird. Like, it's like,
It's
edible.
weird. Well, I think it's because Snyder makes these decisions in a vacuum.
Yes. The Martha thing. We're just saying was the most mocked element.
I think there's a world in which it could work.
I do too.
I mean, it doesn't really work in the movie.
Yeah.
I think there's a world in which that moment can make sense. It doesn't have to be that their names are both Martha, but just the idea that he's calling out for his mother or whatever would be enough to get Batman's head right and be like, oh, this is a person, not like an alien god.
Agreed.
And I think that's what they should have concentrated on rather than that scene where, Batman eventually fights Superman. He's going to kill him with a kryptonite spear.
The fight lasts for 5 minutes?
Yeah, whatever. I mean, how long could it possibly last? And
it happens an hour and a half into the movie?
Longer.
Yeah, hour 45.
Yeah,
we have a 5 minutes fight. Yeah.
And then, just in case you didn't get it, Snyder flashes back to the fucking death scene, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan is the dad going, Martha, as if we didn't get it.
Who was he? Who's the guy on the mountain?
Kevin Costner.
Yeah, what was that?
That's Superman's dad. Academy Award winner Kevin Costner.
What did he go to?
He died.
Planet?
He got sucked up by a tornado in the previous film, and then in this one, Superman just... was that supposed to be a dream sequence again?
There's a lot of dream sequences.
He goes
it's a dream sequence.
to the top of a mountain.
What else is it going to be?
Because also there's that leaky mausoleum scene, like...
The Fortress of Solitude, where Jesse Eisenberg puts Michael Shannon into the bath?
No, he's talking about when Batman has a dream in which he goes to the mausoleum and then the mausoleum is bleeding and then like an inexplicable giant bat monster pops out of the thing. Never explained, never touched on, doesn't mean anything.
So there are literally 5 dream sequences in this
so
film.
many dream sequences.
That's insanity.
It's crazy, especially in a movie that's too long and has a lot of stuff to do. Jesse Eisenberg, he's obviously just being asked, like, do your thing.
Yeah.
And he's bad. He is bad.
I guess.
His lines are so bad and so overwritten that I don't know who could have done a good job here.
And
Agreed.
what's the reasoning?
We don't know. We don't know.
What
Something
is this
about
character?
gods
We don't
and
know.
stuff. And I don't know.
So I read something really interesting.
Okay.
Apparently, in the first draft of this script, Brainiac was in it.
Yes.
And the implication was that Brainiac was controlling Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
That gave him the pieces, pointed him in the right direction. Brainiac is like a super...
See, that makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
And that Lex Luthor's
Okay.
inexplicable behavior was explained by the fact that you would reveal at a certain
That
point.
makes...
Brainiac was masterminding the whole thing, was using Lex Luthor as a pawn, was putting the pieces on the board, right?
That makes no sense.
It makes more sense than what we got.
No. You don't have a movie with Brainiac and Lex Luthor. That makes no fucking sense.
Well, I think
And Lex Luthor's supposed to be his own character with his own motivations. Why don't you just write that? Write a good Lex Luthor character.
I think they came to that realization, and so they cut Brainiac out of the movie, but then didn't change Lex Luthor's behavior at all.
No.
So Lex Luthor
He
still
grows
seems
slowly madder.
right.
And there's like scenes where he's like giving a speech and he kind of like trails off and goes a little crazy. And I guess the implication is he's going crazy. Why? We don't know.
Yeah.
Why does he want Batman to fight Superman? We don't know. He never says anything about Batman.
He like glee like
He
has
doesn't say anything
yeah.
about having a problem with Batman.
No.
Ever in the
he just
movie.
goes a lot.
He does that. He also finds General Zod's crashed ship.
Yeah.
And he gets into what I can only describe as a pit of poop water. Right?
Correct.
He bathes in the toilet. And
He cuts his hand.
And bleeds into it, and this creates what I can only describe as a toilet monster. Right? That looks like a bunch of mud with eyes. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not even trying to be like, I don't know how else you describe Doomsday in this movie.
It looks like the poop monster from Dogma. Like
He
the
is-
literal
He is
shit
the poop monster.
demon, yeah.
Yes. He's a shit demon, and he's doing all this while also elaborately getting Batman and Superman to fight each other,
Right.
which you don't understand why he's doing that.
Yeah.
And yet he also has this backup plan of like, well, if Batman doesn't kill Superman in a really specific way, I'll just unleash this aberration.
But I think he also wants
And that'll-
Batman dead. He hates superheroes.
Why? But are you going to do You Podcast? Is that your intro?
Do you podcast?
Do You Podcast? You will.
You do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you do it.
No, you do it.
My
You
idea
do
was
it.
gonna be so much worse.
What was yours?
Mine was gonna be. I was gonna look up the line so I could get it right. Mine was gonna be, you can put your podcast in a jar marked Mama's Peach Tea, or like I was gonna do that. I was gonna look it up so I could get it right and put podcast into that.
This has been a UCB comedy production. Check out our other shows on the UCB Comedy Podcast Network.